Hi guys, welcome back to a new video. In this episode we are looking at the 1944 pattern web equipment, or 44 Pat web equipment, introduced in the later stages of World War II. Didn't really see service, or combat service I should say, during the war. The vast majority of its service during the war really was with one of the parachute units that went out to Norway at the end of the war, but didn't really see any combat action at all. Was in the process of being shipped out to the Far East prior to the end of the war against Japan. That's the same with the number 5 so-called jungle carbines as well. Similar sort of thing. And basically none of the late war jungle equipment saw service during the war. But however, it did see major service during Korea, Malaya and Borneo, and so on and so forth. You see bits of 44 pattern web equipment used all the way up into the 90s, even some that's seen even in the last 20 years or so. Some guys wearing sort of the belts, or even the water bottle carriers, or the canteens, etc. So we'll get into that in the video itself. I will say this is not the extensive, an extensive or complete video in that sort of sense. We can't look at every single aspect of the 44 pattern equipment that was created, just because of I don't have it available. But I will try and touch on the points as we go through anyway. So I really hope you enjoy, and we'll crack on with the video. Okay, so here we have the webbing on the mannequin. I've just thrown a bush jacket on and the cap just to give something as a sort of an outline to it itself. But it's not representing a general period. It's just something just to portray the webbing itself. So this is roughly the most basic setup of 44 pattern webbing on the mannequin we have here. So we have the basic pouches. These take inspiration from the later version of the 37 pattern basic pouches, i.e. with the quick release tabs, and there's double fasteners so you can have it more secure or looser depending on what you have in the magazine, in the pouches themselves I should say. And standard procedure, so it depending on what the duty was, depending on what you were doing. Bear in mind, as I said in the intro, this was used through Korea, Malaya and into Borneo, and also post that as well in some areas. So depending on what you were doing, if you're going to fight a patrol or recce or whatever, depending, you might have different things. And obviously with the period from going from bolt action rifles over to self-loading rifles, things change as well depending on what you're carrying. So you could have Brem mags or SLR mags later on, bandoliers, etc., and that could change. Or you could have some of your mess kit in there, a burner so you could cook some food, etc., when you're out in the bush or wherever you may be. So things do change. The belt itself is the same style that's been used up until this point. Well, from the 37 pattern, I should say. The Mills type fastener, sort of the male and female, almost hook and eye kind of thing going on there. Change, there was a bayonet frog for the 44 pattern webbing, but the most usual type was actually, so if I just spin it around here, holding onto the legs, is the bayonet on the, attached to the, excuse me, the basic pouch itself. So on the left side, yes, left side, bayonet on here. Here we have this is the South African number 9, basically. You can tell because the blade is different. Well, if I pull the blade out, the blade is different, but also it has more of a straight securing nut. I can never remember the name of the things, but you know what I mean. On there, it's more of a pointed blade rather than a Bowie knife son of blade, Bowie blade. The fasteners you see here and the straps here are for the haversack, the small pack, or whatever you want to call it. Probably the best version of the small pack haversack with any equipment the British Army had made up until this point, and even beating out easily what comes later with the 58 pattern webbing with their large pack, so called. Great, it's rubberized on the lid, and then most of it inside, but it should be all rubberized. My one's coming apart a bit, but that's just a minor detail. Adjustable straps, so you can adjust it while you're wearing it, which is great. So much more comfortable, much easier to use. It could be worn easily without the webbing equipment. Obviously, you have the hooks to attach it to the basic pouches, but that's beside the point. It could be used with that. There is a larger one, which I will get into in a little bit, which was brought in later, which wasn't as popular. It was still good, and it's still superior to what comes with the 58 webbing, but this is probably the best part, and we'll get onto that as we go around. Spinning round, you can see the rifle is slung over the shoulder. Now, I've done this mainly because to show off one of the aspects that was supposed to be used with this equipment. Obviously, with introduction of the number 5 Lee-Enfield, or so-called the jungle carbine, but it's more of a colloquialism, just because of its use in Malaya and etc. But we just have a number 1 Mark 4. Sorry, number 1. No, it's a number 4. So what am I about? I'm talking gibberish. Just to show off this aspect of the equipment, there is a loop with a lift the dot fastener on the belt. This is to secure the stock when wearing it over the shoulder with the sling. So it's to keep it secure. I try and put in the end a picture from the original manuals, etc., and the original photos from the early 50s. I think the late 40s, early 50s, showing it being used in marching order with this, etc. setup. And it's a good little thing. I found it quite good when wearing other things, like the machete. It keeps it in place. I can secure it a bit better with this. But as a most thing, a lot of guys cut these off because they're a bit useless, really. Because a lot of guys didn't really, because this was seen to it was going to replace the 37 pattern webbing across the board, and it would be used in Northwest Europe. But 37 pattern lasted throughout the 1950s, and was still seen somewhat into the 1960s in mainline use, into the early 60s, until 58 could catch up and replace it properly. And 58 was a far superior webbing equipment in that sort of sense, bar the large pack being absolutely inadequate for what it was doing. But again, we'll get into that in that video. We can see the side here. We can see the 44 pattern canteen. So this is the earlier type with the aluminium lid, which would be replaced by a rubber lid later, just because of it tended to make a lot of noise when you try to close it, etc. It squeaks a lot. Obviously, it's metal on metal, and I think the seal didn't last as good as, say, like on the rubber ones or the plastic lids ones. But all in all, the carrier and the water bottle itself, with its cup, which is a metal aluminium cup, far superior again to what comes with the 58 pattern webbing, which is a plastic, either green or black, depending on the period. I think there was another colour as well, but mainly green or black. Plastic canteen and cup, which again you couldn't cook with. It was, yeah, there's good bits to it and bad bits to it, but in general, like having like hot drinks and that out of the plastic one was quite good because you didn't burn yourself. But again, you couldn't cook with it like you could with the one that's in here. I'll try and do a close up at the end of the items in here as well. So that's the water bottle carrier. You see these used throughout, obviously, the life of the 44, but also into the life of the 58. You see these used by guys in place of the 58 pattern water bottles, just because these are far superior and they hang nicely on the belt, either through hanger hooks, which obviously the 58 pattern webbing belt doesn't have, but there's a slide loop as well, which you just pass the belt through, which is how I have it on here at the moment. I find the hanger hooks a bit irritating. It's more so hankering back to the American style of belts, so you could use American equipment with this or vice versa. And this is a far superior water bottle to that what comes later, and to what had come before with the enamel water bottles. So this was a far better design. And as I say again, you have the aluminium caps, and then you have the later rubber or plastic ones. Well, I think they are plastic, but I think with like a rubber seal, I should say. Turning around again, not really much to see apart from the way this suspends on the back. So I'll have the haversack off in a minute. Have a look, but you can sort of see it crosses at the back like the old ones do. But there's also an extra securing strap which goes again round towards the side of the hip, really, on both sides, which gives it more secure, more stability, has a much better fit and much better hangs better on the back itself. Now we have the haversack itself. You can see there's eyelets here to hang more stuff off. A newbie, be another water bottle, if it be a binoculars case or whatever you want to hang off here, you can. The haversack itself has fasteners here, which you can be easily be tightened, much better to the what had come previously. Easy to open, easy to close, very quick and very useful. Has side pockets with quick release tabs, and as I said, this is lined with rubber inside as well, so keeps stuff dry. Very, very important considering where the majority of this equipment was used the majority of the time. Excuse me. So very, very important bit of kit. Holds a lot as well. There's no compartments. There's one big space. So you have a lot of room to put stuff. And again, because it's rubberized, it keeps it dry. Some guys would ever put like an extra bag or something inside to keep it even more dry, depending on where you are. And again, if you're working in the jungles of Malaya or even Korea, and then or Borneo in that as well, the weather is not your friend. It will try to kill you at every turn, really. So having your basic kit dry, like your socks and everything, spare socks, is a lifesaver. It really, really is. And these side pockets could be good for anything, if it be like mess kit, food, extra stuff like that. These ones themselves, these side pockets, these aren't lined, so you might have to bag whatever's in here up, because these side pockets aren't lined, but it's more space for storage and more space to put everything else. Sometimes you'll see photos or film of guys going out on patrol, say in Malaya, for example, who are laden with stuff. They've got a lot of stuff if they're going out for like a 2 or 3 day patrol or whatever. You see guys with a lot of stuff. And as I said, with the haversack, there is a larger one which came with a sort of a second pattern equipment, and the wear changes to the basic pouches as well, which I'll get into. And also I'll also show the next pattern of this as well in the later part of the video. So we'll get onto that in a minute. Let me just turn around to the final bit on this side. As I said about the bayonet, this is the South African version of the number 9. Sorry, the lighting's a bit bad at the moment, but I'll just turn it around. There we go. That's better. So if I'll just pause here and I'll get it out for you. Okay, here we go. Here's the South African one. So as I said, it's more of a spear point than it is a Bowie blade. That of the number 9 or later SLR bayonets. But this set of equipment would see, as I said, would see service throughout the 1950s, well, throughout the very late 1940s, 50s, 60s, into the 70s, and parts of it, especially the water bottle, and even sometimes even the haversack, but mainly the water bottle, see service into the 80s and the 90s. So that's the basic set of equipment. There are bits missing I will get onto actually quickly. There would be like a strap that goes from here, passes round under the straps, and then secures at the front to give it a bit more support. That has been cut off. They normally were. It's fairly uncommon to find these straps still existing. Generally because it was really unnecessary, really. The haversack held fairly okay. It sort of passed through here and through these parts here, and then secured around the front with a little just a normal buckle. But yeah, it was a bit unnecessary, really. But that was normally removed. The pouches were sometimes altered, so the ones these are high on the belt. You see sometimes slots cut into the back of the top of the back of these to hang low on the belt. So the basic pouches are quite high on the belt, as you can see. You sort of sit just under halfway on the belt itself. Pouches, a retrofit in the field. A lot of guys cut slots in the top and the back of the pouches, so just up here, so they would sit lower. On the second pattern, or the Mark II, or whatever pouches, we can say there were extra C-clips, or so the weight secures to the belt, extra clips put onto the top, so you could have it higher or lower depending how you wanted it, which was really, really good actually. It meant they could sort of be worn on their own as well without supporting straps, etc. So it's quite a good addition for those. These are first pattern ones without those buckles at the top. But even so, really, really good, especially portraying an early parter or whatever. But both were used throughout, as was the haversack as well. So that is the basic overlay. I'll get on to the finer points in a minute. and show you the other aspects of the equipment. So here we have another example of the water bottle and carrier, the canteen and carrier itself. This is actually one that was used by my dad a long time ago, and me and my brother have used it since long time ago during cadets and that. But yeah, so here we have basically the same carrier, but the water bottle is slightly different with the different cap. So it was the plastic rubberized cap, which means there's less noise. So, well, supposedly anyway. And yeah, that's sort of the one. As you can see, here's the hook for the eyelets. So the sort of M1910 American hook and eye system kind of thing, and then the slot, which I think is much more useful for just the belt, because you can slip it on any belt really that way. So that's the other canteen, and then we have the so-called large pack, or almost like the valise for the 1944 Pat. A lot larger, bigger flap, etc. You have all these extra, same almost like compartments on the side. But these are the twist lock style for these. These ones are a bit stiff, but basically the same. These ones aren't lined as well, but the hat pack itself is lined is rubberized lined, which makes it very good for waterproof. See, there's a lot of other fittings on here, extra straps or slots on and on the back. Same game really. Uses the L straps that would use for the haversack on it. See, as you can see, this one has been marked up for a certain unit. So I think that's the man's number, I believe. And there's unit, etc. So really, really cool. But it's basically the same deal as the other, of the smaller pack. But this one wasn't as liked as much as the other one. Just I think it was too large in some sort of sense. But yeah, that's sort of the basic overview of those two extra items. So we'll wrap up the video. I hope you've enjoyed, and we'll join me in a minute. So I really, really hope you enjoyed that. If I did miss anything, which I probably did, please put it in the comments below. But again, as I said, I'll hope to make a more, well, other consecutive videos after the mainline series is done. I know I do apologise that this has taken a long time, just how things are, and obviously life gets in the way, you know, that sort of thing, as I've explained before. But, as I said, I will hope to create other videos after the main series, looking at specific bits, once I get hold of them. Also, other sets of equipment which weren't, say, the mainline stuff, but were very important when they were used. Like, for example, the 1914 pattern leather equipment, which was used in the Great War, which was just meant for a stopgap measure to supply troops training, but eventually became a very much used mainline set of equipment alongside the 08 pattern. That's just one example. So again, I really, really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you again in the next one. Bye, guys.